As we have a special guest with us for this episode of Gudhdai Gudhdai Guff, a rare occurrence, one of the most happening and prominent muralists of our times. Yo pali chai we took a long drive to find Nepalकै best pani puri pasal, and along the way we got into a fun conversation about the creative life and thoughts of Kiran Maharjan. What's up?
Oh, kids have.
Welcome to the program, Kiran.
Thank you so much. Excited.
How was your day so far?
It's been pretty chill as like nothing interesting. Was working on your canvas. It's boring night.
Canvas. See, what do you mean canvas?
It's a commission project, sir. So this I'm starting one canvas. So if that ends up being all right, then there's multiple more to do.
Okay.
So like we're working with clients,
I see. So before we go in that direction, so first of all, let me introduce everyone to Kiran Maharjan Dai. He's a professional muralist. He's done over 30 murals so far.
I haven't counted, but could be more.
Probably 30 plus, right?
Yeah.
And he's an international muralist. He has tons of work in Nepal as well as all over India. I'm guessing mostly south of India is...
South of India, a couple of, it's kind of spread out. Some parts here and there. Few in one work in US, one in Cambodia, but mostly it's in India.
Wow. So, in Cambodia पनि पुगिसक्नु भयो?
Cambodia, yeah.
So that's the first country out of Nepal or India, that's Cambodia.
Outside, Cambodia, yeah, definitely.
Wow. And how did that happen?
So Cambodia, there's this thing that they do called like Cambodia Urban Art Festival. So one of the organizers is मेरो साथी Shifumi भन्ने. So he's French, but he lives in Cambodia. So he invited us as a team to come and like paint in Cambodia. So we went. It was quite fun.
And how does the logistic side of that whole process happen?
It's usually straightforward for the person who is going, like usually the artist, for me especially. The only thing that you have to think about is like, what is the wall like? What are the materials you are getting? And this what's the time frame that you have to finish it in? Otherwise, the organizers they have to figure out the flights, they have to figure out where you're gonna stay, they have to figure out materials, they have to figure out like everything, when the artist is coming in. So त्यो बेसिसमा चाहिँ नि it's logistically उनीहरूलाई चाहिँ गाह्रो छ, but for an artist it's always it's always a fun experience.
Is it so something like that, international art festival, हैन? कहिलेकाहीँ अब लाइक काठमाडौँको सर्टेन रेस्टुरेन्ट्सहरुमा टालिरा देखिरा हुन्छु के हैन? सो नेपालमा पनि इन्टरनेशनल आर्ट फेस्टिभल्सहरु भनेर is that same level कै हुन्छ कि how is there a difference between नेपालमा हुने art festivals versus त्यहाँ तपाई जानु भएको एक्सपिरियन्समा? What's the similarities, what's the difference के छ?
Biggest difference is the scale of it. Nepalमा चाहिँ it usually happens in Kathmandu. Kathmandu is pretty small. Everything is pretty small. Scale wise, logistics wise, so it feels very small, but also feels very tight knit. So त्यो बेसिसमा भयो. तर बाहिरको चाहिँ it's pretty grand. Like you have like massive spaces to do like events, you have like space collateral events or which makes it interesting all together in a different scale.
Events भन्नाले चाहिँ so art को हिसाबमा events चाहिँ के हो?
Art को बेसिसमा events there's a lot of like seminars talk programs and all of that do happen, so exhibitions so that becomes a very big part, especially हाम्रो like street art को मा चाहिँ नि the main thing that happens is always on the street, right? So like artists are they activate the space, they do like murals and all of that. So त्यो बेसिसमा चाहिँ नि it's usually नेपालमा चाहिँ नि it's not that big, but it's interesting nonetheless.
Okay, so let me take a step back, just किनभने I think we just kept on going with हाम्रो हुन्छ नि art conversation. So let me take a small step back, you know, छोटो step. Let's go at the start. हुन्छ नि तपाईको तपाईँ जन्मिनु भएको दिनमै जाउँ हैन, त्यो 3 Idiots मा हुन्छ नि.
That's weird.
So त्यो 3 Idiots को उ सीन छ नि, मेरा बेटा डक्टर बनेगा, मेरा बेटा इंजिनियर बनेगा वाला हैन. So I'm sure like हुन्छ नि, जस्तो मेरो केसमा मोस्ट अफ मैले चिनेको यो नेपालमा हुर्किएको जन्मेको गाइजहरुको गर्ल्सहरुको केसमा हेर्दाखेरि सिमिलर कन्सेप्ट हुन्थ्यो हैन, मेरो छोरा छोरी यस्तो भन्छन् भनेर. तपाईको केसमा वाज इट सिमिलर कि सानोमा मेरो छोरा म्युरलिस्ट भन्छ?
यो कुरामा चाहिँ नि आई थिंक द मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेन्ट थिङ द्याट कम्स यस्तो कुरामा चाहिँ नि एक्सपेक्टेसन अफ चिल्ड्रेनकोमा चाहिँ नि जेनेरेसनल ट्रमा चाहिँ बिकम्स भेरी इम्पोर्टेन्ट आई थिंक.
हजुर,
किनकि माई ड्याड स्पेसली हैन, मेरो ड्याड चाहिँ नि कस्तो छ भन्दाखेरि ही वाज भेरी एस्पिरेसनल. ही वान्टेड टु स्टडी अ लट, तर अब नेवार फ्यामिलीको त्यसमाथि झन् अब जातो भन्ने चिज हुन्छ नि त, जुन त्यो स्टार म्याप छ त्यो चिनो देखाउँदाखेरि चाहिँ नि मेरो ड्याडको चाहिँ 18 इयर्समा भित्र चाहिँ बिहा गर्नै पर्छ, नत्र भए he will only get married after 25 or 27 something त्यस्तै के थियो नि. सो त्यो हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ नि he was forced to get married. अनि त्यसले गर्दाखेरि he had to you know like let go of all of his like aspirations and everything like that. And because of that my dad has been a very strong supporter in terms of like जे मन लाग्छ त्यो गर्नुपर्छ, इच्छा लागेको चिज चाहिँ गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने हिसाबमा चाहिँ थियो के. तर of course my dad being my dad हैन, he was also like expecting me not to be an artist, not because like he did not understand it, it's because he understand it a lot more than other parents, okay? Because he had a lot of like artist friends, he used to make art as well, and he has seen these people, okay? They're struggling, they have like a small gallery huncha, त्यही ग्यालरीमा बसेर पेन्टिङ बनाउँछ अनि त्यसपछि they sell that हैन. So त्यो बेसिसमा चाहिँ नि he has seen that difficulty, and त्यो बेसिसमा चाहिँ he didn't want me to go through that, okay? And that's why he was a little hesitant when I wanted to like join a university at Kathmandu University. He was convinced pretty easily, I must say. Yeah.
Wait, so अब मलाई अर्को एउटा क्वेशन आयो, we wanted to take a small step, तर अर्को एक स्टेप पनि लियौँ है त. So हजुरको ड्याड चाहिँ how did he know all these अरू आर्टिस्टहरु? How was his friends artists as well?
I mean, like, he used to hang out a lot with other people as well. He used to make art as well. I still have his sketchbook. Oh, wow. And that has, like, a lot of his, like, older drawings. And it was very, very good, you know? So, त्यो बेसिसमा चाहिँ नि he had that aspiration going on as well. I don't think he wanted to be an artist. I think he wanted to, like, pursue, like, chartered accountancy or something like that. But couldn't do it. But overall, I think... like he had that knack of like being surrounded by creative people and also understanding what creativity means.
Wait, so would it be safe in saying you got a lot of inspiration from your dad growing up?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely. His meticulous attention to details, like persistence in doing a job, even though he's like a procrastinator as I am. Like when he touches something, he has to get it done right. And I think that is something that I like got from him. And patience comes from my mom. So I guess like it's a very good combination, you know, like persistence and patience at the same time. Coming from like both parents a little, so yeah.
Well, हजुरको siblings पनि हुनुहुन्छ?
We are 5. It's a big group.
ए हो?
We have 5.
That's
so
crazy.
I'm the second child.
हजुर.
So 5 people, yeah.
So how does that? Okay, so first of all 5 are छोरा छोरी दिदी दाइ. So कतिजना को is?
So दिदी एकजना, त्यसपछि it's me, and त्यसपछि I have twin sisters, and then I have a younger brother. So
you have a 5. Twin sister?
Yeah, twin
That's
sister.
crazy. How does that go with how's that experience actually? 5 kids and you're a twin.
It's a blessing, but I've gone through it, so I would not want other people to have the kids, because like it's quite wholesome, because like you have to handle them both at the same time, and they were very close to me. Like I remember the school time as I used to be in my class and my like school exam teacher used to call me in my class कि तिम्रो बहिनीहरु चाहिँ रुदैछ. So I would have to go downstairs and console both of them because they would be crying, asking for me, right? So त्यो बेसिसमा चाहिँ it's nice to have twin sisters, but also like, you know, you always have to do things twice. You always have to explain things twice. You always have to get two things, you know. So yeah, but it's fun. Yeah.
Wow. So let's say, how is everyone doing in their life? Like, are they all into art? Is dad dadले त्यति रब गर्छ आफ्नो influence कि?
Professionally, nobody is an artist except me. I know. So everybody has their own knack. Most of my sisters, all of my sisters are like into a medical field.
Wow.
And my brother is a UI UX designer, so he does that as well. One interesting thing about all of us is like, I feel like we are very independent in terms of like, what we want to do and how we are going to do it. So we always, don't usually ask for help. So we do that, but also like with my sisters and me, I feel like we are all very interested in psychology in a sense, because मेरो काममा पनि psychology comes in certain ways, and all three of them also like somewhat majored in psychology as well. So in that sense, all three are like nurses, but yeah, their major was that.
Wow. I think there's a controversial headline भर्खरै realize गरेको, which is Kiran Maharjan says UI UX is not art, but
Did I say like it's all UI UX? So more like not like in traditional art. See, I'm a traditional. So I use like paint. So I didn't mean it in that way, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, of course. So I mean, I didn't know until you had 4 siblings growing up. You know. I can't even imagine how mom like especially since the dad is a procrastinator, as you said.
Exactly.
But I mean, walk us through Hazurko journey as an artist, but let's start from 16 वर्षको उमेरदेखि के हैन. What's the one thing that you remember or you'd want to recall के 16 वर्षको उमेरमा that has made a massive impact on your life?
It definitely has to be meeting this one specific teacher, this art teacher. So 16, more like earlier than that pani, so more than earlier than 16 ma pani. But I studied with him for a long time. So when I was in class 8, I had really shifted to this new school. And from the previous school, that school was pretty shit, I have to say it. It wasn't that good. But the best thing about that was this like particular teacher that was not a very normal teacher. So he wouldn't be like, come to the class and this like draw something like do your art and all of that, but his methodology of like teaching something would be very interesting. He wouldn't give you straight answers. He would make you seek the answers. Okay? So that was very interesting for me. And his work was also very good. So that pushed me to realize that, I am very interested in art, you know. So he also mentored me for a long time. So class 8, 9, when you're in grade 10, it's all like Nepali standard mate art classes, extracurricular activities. So it's more about like the time SLC, right? So I used to, after finishing the school, I used to go to his studio and especially practice for an hour or two and especially then get back home again. So because of that particular teacher, I realized that this is what I wanted to do. And after graduating, like finishing 10th standard, I like knew that I wanted to do something in art, but wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I wanted to make art. Bara sir, Babu Raza Deola. So he still lives in the same house. He still has the studio there. A lot of good friends have also come from that studio space. I continued studying with him like for 2 years later, for 2 more years after 10th standard as well. So a lot of tenacity also comes from his side.
Nice. Who got no man for the camera editor? Bara to start highlight.
Like
like the answer guy.
As in, like, explain, like, the Barasar one.
I know, just naam matra ka त्यसरी लिटले.
Barasar. Bhavraja Devda Barasar.
Nice.
I respect him a lot. I haven't been able to see him a lot, but yeah.
Shout out to your first inspiration.
First inspiration, my first teacher, Barasar.
So continuing, हैन 16 वर्षको किरण दाइ is just learning about art and getting into the studio culture.
Yeah.
हैन that's school सकिन्जेलसम्म हैन अनि school सकेपछि you're doing that. So what did you do after SLC actually?
SLC पछि चाहिँ नि it's I was still my plan was like I'm going to continue studying under him, under my teacher Barasar ko under. And त्यसपछि I was going to do like 11-12 ma something very easy, which was like humanities. A lot of people are going to hate me for saying that, but like humanities, I did that, हैन. अनि त्यसपछि अनि still continue studying under the teacher. I had my own sort of, no, that was after 12. I had my own studio space pani with my friends.
Nice.
So every morning we used to get up, we used to go to Lagan Khel, we used to do like quick sketching, like early years, everybody understand how important quick sketching is, early period. And this which he used to come back to the studio space, do a little bit of work, go back home, like have like lunch, and this which come back to the studio space and work more on your painting or whatever you're working on.
Wait, I'm going to stop you right there. Is that one of your murals?
It is, but it's covered up. That one, yeah.
Yo, modern is
This one.
This one.
Yeah. Yeah, this one. This is like a retouched wala.
Retouched?
Yeah. I did this back in like 2016 maybe. 16 ma. They really liked the work, so they wanted to like refurbish it, like because of water damage. So I did that again in like 2021, 2022 probably.
So the first time you made it, how old were you?
That's a good question. It's 26, 20, I don't know, 26.
26. Wait, so by that time, would you say ki you knew this is what you're going to do?
Yeah, definitely. At that time, like by that time, that's like a very big gap. We're talking about almost 7-8 years of time period where I had done a lot of work already. I had like seen few things, like experienced a lot of like art as well. So yeah, definitely.
So what are like 3 things I know that you remember while making that, or like getting that commission to get that work, or just anything to do with that work?
So two time period I was doing a lot of like commission work as well. And one thing I did realize was like people are very interested in having walls painted.
Okay.
And I think like first thing was like understanding that people value my work. And second is like you can make money with it. And third is like I get to paint walls and also get money. My own design, right? So that was like very interesting for me, because earlier years people would want something on the wall, but they wouldn't necessarily want something that you design. They would want something off the Google or Pinterest, and they would just want to have that copied. But then again, having people understand that they want your design and your work on their wall, it was a very big step for me as well. And I think like oily summer pani, it's quite interesting that it's a humbling process, because they see my work and they always like tapaiko kaam ramro लाग्छ, so we want that, so that's always interesting.
Nice. So also हामी 16 वर्ष भयौं हैन, अनि 16 वर्षमा we figured out कि you have support from your dad and your mom, the patience from your mom, that allows you to after studies, after class works गएर स्टुडियोमा काम गर्न पाइरहनु भएको छ है. And then this is 16 वर्ष भयो, 18 वर्ष कटिसक्यो, you guys have a studio now with your friends. I know that's pretty unique from where I come from. I know, because I've never had any friends apart from you who's had studio त्यो बेला हैन. So this is 18 years old. I know. So after 18 years old, abba now people are making decisions. होइन अब लाइफमा अहिलेसम्म त जेनरल एजुकेसन थियो the only decisions you had to made was optional math कि geography होइन अनि साइन्स कि म्यानेजमेन्ट कि कमर्स कि ह्युम्यानिटिज होइन अब नाउ त इट्स गेटिङ मोर एन्ड मोर स्पेसिफिक सो 18 years पछि चाहिँ के भयो
So that was very interesting time किनकि स्टुडियो चलिरहेछ and mind you it's not that we are making studio मा चाहिँ नि we are just making our art के we are also very conscious that we also have to make money out of it in a sense which is also a very important topic to discuss as well किनकि we are also running art classes for like tiny kids around that area like school go and we used to get money from that and that's how we used to pay the rent for the studio space basically so दिनको 2-3 घण्टा त्यो भयो so त्यो time period मा चाहिँ नि so it was all about like me as an artist होइन it was all about like creating like canvas works and त्यसपछि creating artworks based on that अनि taking the artwork to like होइन अब कसरी रियलिस्टिक बनाउन मिल्छ and all of that right अनि त्यो टाइममा चाहिँ but like earlier than that also I was very interested in skateboarding culture skateboarding was like a very interesting idea to me because like you have like I used to watch like X Games and like used to follow a lot of like the sports people like skateboarders and त्यो बाट चाहिँ नि I got introduced to like skateboard को deck so deck मा चाहिँ नि there used to be like graphics of like different graffiti and stuff like that which was very interesting to me becoming like because I was interested in art right so त्यो हेर्न थालेपछि चाहिँ I kind of realized that okay this is something also very interesting and that is when I started researching about it so what is like graffiti and what is street art and I used to spend hours in त्यति बेला त अब cyber cafes हरु हुन्थ्यो नि त so I used to spend hours there like researching about like के हो graffiti के हो street art and I used to download a lot of images and but then again I also knew that this is not very serious thing this is something that I'm interested in I don't think I would like to do this I'm more interested in like making gallery works like canvases like त्यस्तो खाले
so you were like you were confused हुन्छ नि यो गर्न मन छ तर यो पनि
I wasn't confused it was more like I never took street art very seriously I never took graffiti very seriously it was something that I was doing on the side but I never showed it to my friends who came from like the same teacher ko through and for us it was more like painting like realistic images studio concept so I never showed it to them
you had a question I'll just ask you in the before we keep go beyond so skateboard culture ma were you in Kathmandu is this in Kathmandu
it was in Kathmandu
where was this because this is a long time ago
this is a very long time ago
I mean you guys would probably be of course harik generation ma there are like skateboard man paraune मान्छेहरु but you guys pani त्यो बेलामा you guys would be pretty rare breed of people to find
I mean like the time but then again you also have to realize that we are riding around in like very really bad supermarket ma paune skateboard huncha ni where the wheels would be like super dodgy and it wouldn't very last very long so you had to constantly like keep up the maintenance and everything so त्यो थियो तर I think because I found more interest in the art side of like skateboarding I kind of like wasn't really interested in the riding part of it so त्यो भएपछि चाहिँ I did ride a little bit but then again I think I stopped doing that पछि चाहिँ नि skateboarding ma चाहिँ नि
but then you got exposed to graffiti skateboard art culture ले गर्दाखेरि
skateboarding culture yeah definitely
so would you say कि skateboard culture मा नछिरेको भए you would have never even imagined yourself being where you are
never I don't think I would be where I am right now if I had not like if I hadn't known about like skateboarding culture and all of that which is quite a very interesting thing to think about
and it's not even something that you actually got too deeply into it's just interesting to you
exactly
so it's just how life plays out do you believe in destiny actually
not really man I'm not very I think like a lot of people wouldn't like this what I'm saying but I'm not very spiritual in that sense I'm not very like deep minded I feel like I'm very like realistic in terms of like my understanding of like what it is and what I can do, you know. So I'm also not like very much like a mere art and like 10 years, like 100 years later on, people would be reading about me or talking about me. I'm not also very much interested in that, okay? Because at the end of the day, I'm not making art for other people. I'm making it for myself, which I think is a very interesting thing, because I think making art is a very selfish act. It is a very selfish act, because like you don't really care about what other people are thinking, but like you want to make something, so you make it. But irrespective of like what other people are saying or like telling you about it.
But would you say that the most successful artists are the most selfish people?
You have to be selfish. Definitely, you have to be selfish, because like I think that is also very interesting. In Nepal's context, also what happens is like a lot of people end up leaving art because they get a lot of responsibilities. But the selfishness that you have to have, saying that I don't really care about like family responsibilities, but I'm gonna keep doing what I really like to do and not really care about other things, is I think something a lot of people won't like as well, but it's also necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to do what you've got to do.
Exactly.
Like, no passion from another.
Because it's also not something that happens like in a year or two. You have to actively keep doing it, because it's a process at the end of the day. So that's very important. Yeah.
So the question we're trying to get to eventually, I know it's been a while, but eventually the question we want to get to is, how did you become successful? I know, but to understand that, we are trying to get to know your history and an introduction to you as an artist, as a person, as an individual, as a family member, as you know, as an observer of the world that you live in. So ahilesamma we're at your 20s, early 20s, you know. How do you think family, friends, society plays in an individual's life, I know, who's decided to pursue art as a career in Nepal?
I think support structure becomes very important in Nepal. I think when you live in a place like this, surrounded by art in a sense, you know, and but also want to do something considering your economic background, Bunny, you also have to not just commend the artist for doing it, but also have to commend the people around the artist too, that made it possible. I think that's also very important. So त्यो बेसिसमा चाहिँ नि I think family members to play a very big role, like people who support you, like irrespective of they are family members or not, friends who actively try to help you and like seek out for you like inspirations and everything. Whenever something artistic happens, you kind of like mention it to like the other person, and त्यसरी पनि like networking गरिदिने. And I think that also becomes very important as an artist को लागि चाहिँ नि. And I think including supporters, I think sometimes critics and people who sometimes dish on your work is also very important, I think, because until and unless you step out of your comfort zone, I think you won't be able to manifest what you're actually trying to do, you know. And if you step out of your comfort zone, then only that you will be able to create something interesting and new that would be very different, I think.
How important is creating something new to you?
Very, very important, I think. Considering I'm somebody who likes to have multiple things happening at the same time, I kind of get bored by one thing. So the basis was, I think creating something new is very, very important.
So is it for creating something new that you are a selfish person? Is that how the equation works?
I don't think it's an act of selfishness. I think it's an act of self-observation and self-critique. Because I don't think, normally, बस्दाखेरि पनि दिनका दिन मोमो खान सकिँदैन. It's something that you will get bored by eventually, you know. So I think it's interesting enough to know that you will get fed up with it and you will like to move on to something new, interesting, because it's a process. It's an artistic process. Evolution is part of it, so it has to evolve. It will evolve. If you're not evolving your work, I think you're killing yourself in a certain way. I think like it's self-detrimental in a way. I think, yeah.
Okay, so we'll take a break. होइन यहाँ अति मिठो पानीपुरी भएको छ होइन पानीपुरी र
चुरोट yes चुरोट मसँग
Best pani puri.
Right, so we're back after a small break. How was the panipuri there?
Very good.
Hey?
Too far off, but definitely to try again.
Oh, I don't know. सस्तो पनि छ भरपर्दो
धेरै सस्तो
पेटको चाहिँ ग्यारेन्टी दिन मिल्दैन
should have said it.
As with any panipuri place. Okay, so I think to jump back into the conversation, we also had this nice conversation before about death. I know. What do you think? I've also heard a lot of artists getting inspiration from death and the temporary nature of life. What do you think about death as an artist?
I think it's always been a topic of fascination. So like understanding that we are here only for a short period of time, and especially it's an integral part of like the whole state of being alive. I think it's an important thing to discuss. Mero like BFA ko like final project pani related to the concept of like death and what do we become after we die. We become part of the environment again, like part of the nature again. So to basis I think like I did that exhibition pani ani
that exhibition
to BFA ko wala final exhibition ani so but also like as always, like having people that you care about also like dying because of like other like different reasons, to त्यसले गर्दाखेरि पनि it's an interesting concept. And I did that. So BFA ko time ma चाहिँ नि I like went to like Kathmandu University ko MBBS ko course wala ko ma. So the cadavers and like taking pictures of cadavers and like using that as an inspiration to create artworks as well. So it's but also it kind of relates to like what I do now because street art, graffiti is very ephemeral. So in a sense अहिले paint गरेछ, so it might not be there tomorrow, so त्यो बेसिसमा चाहिँ it has a very short lifespan, but it's not about like what the final output is. This is the process of like creating the piece. अनि त्यो बेसिसमा चाहिँ नि it's kind of connected, no? अनि yeah, like it's kind of interesting अहिलेसम्म पनि.
So यो PFA को art exhibition को कुरा गर्दाखेरि so just to make sure we're on the same page. So Azule, after you did your humanities ko +2, then you did PFA. And PFA was a final year ko final exhibition ko kura bhaira
yeah.
So यसमा चाहिँ what happened? What was the artwork? केमा गर्नु भएको थियो? What did it look like? What was the outcome of it? What was the process of creating? Because it seems like you're very much creation is this beast that you want to conquer, or like make it part of your life. That's where you get satisfaction from. So what was this BFA final exhibition about?
So throughout the whole BFA time period, I was very interested in anatomy and especially human figures and everything. So to point ma the whole process during the BFA death and the concept of death ended up becoming a continuous topic for me that I was kind of trying to reach at. Okay? So, and in 2 times I had already started doing a lot of like street artwork. But a lot of people expected me to like do a final exhibition about like street art and the culture of street art. But I felt like that was a chapter that I needed to finalize in a sense, that what I thought about like that and like my concepts behind it. And त्यसमा चाहिँ I had multiple works, a couple of paintings, and a few installation works as well. So painting was it was like a full figure, like massive 7x5 ko painting there, and it was like a full figure of a human being, like after they have died, of course. And this was there were like vines and stuffs growing out of the chest area. And those canvas doesn't continue, but it was like I had added in like branches to the canvas ko structure pani. So it was more about stepping away from the canvas ko rectangular format pani, but also talking about what it means to die afterward out of the frame in sense. Okay? So also did like an installation as well, where I was very much interested in like special effects makeup and creating like this fake arms or stuff like that. So I had created this arm that was growing out of a branch, but the arm was made out of silicone. So I had painted it very realistically, and it kind of felt like a hand. Okay? So there was this sense of touch ko kura pani, where there was more about like making it as realistic as possible, where people felt like, oh, this is a concept that is that can be also perceived in this different dimension.
मलाई पनि यो के भन्छ ब्याथको चाहिँ के है, it feels very sad, but then it's also it's a very common way of saying it's the one contract that you've signed immediately after birth. And so the fact that यो हुने नै कुरा हो, and what happens, how it happens, there's a long process in between. So it's guaranteed, and that's pretty motivating. Even like day-to-day life ma pani कहिलेकाहीँ सोच्दाखेरि or कहिलेकाहीँ पशुपति जाँदाखेरि
exactly
हैन, or even like कहिलेकाहीँ movie मा someone हुन्छ नि passes away, that's pretty touching.
Exactly.
And it has a lot of emotional connection to me as a consumer, a viewer. And as an artist, I can only imagine that you have to go beyond that consumer feel experience to get त्यो हेर्ने मान्छेलाई चाहिँ कसरी देखाउन मिल्छ, or what I interpret from this concept of death. What was the toughest challenge you've ever faced?
Toughest challenge? This happened couple of like this was like during the time where I actually figured out something that I wanted to do. And that time period something happened that made me feel like whether or not I wanted to be an artist in a sense. Okay? So that time period I was very much into like experimenting with like what can I add more to my street works. And one thing that I wanted to add was like, because I belong from the Nepal community, I wanted Ranjana Lipi to be a very prominent aspect of my work, because I felt like it wasn't getting the reputation that it necessarily required, but also I felt like the form was very interesting. So to time period I made this in collaboration with other artists as well. I made this work where I had like calligraphy of like Ranjana Lipi. अनि त्यो भएपछि चाहिँ नि के भयो भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ नि there were people who started saying that I was deriving directly from like other artistsहरूको काम and sort of like copying in a sense भन्ने. अनि so त्यो बेसिसमा चाहिँ it was kind of problematic for me कि I thought that people are sort of like questioning where am I getting my inspiration from, but also like I felt like, is this where I stand as an artist? The whole process was very stressful. I felt like I was questioning myself as an artist whether or not I should continue doing this or not. And it really went into like 2-3 weeks of hibernation where I wasn't even creating any artworks, where I wasn't even thinking about it, where I was like almost thinking about quitting it because I was having this like self-doubt and everything. But one interesting thing that happened was like this this point where I realized that how can a person who hasn't understood my process question it, and why should I let that person dictate what I'm going to do? So there was this sense of ego, but in a very positive way, where I was like, where I need to show my caliber of like what I can do in a sense. I created this particular style that I was very recognized with later on, where I started painting black and white portraits with like calligraphical element on the face. where I was talking about this whole idea of like biological evolution versus intellectual evolution, and where we humans are slowly evolving biologically, but the major evolution has happened intellectually. So two concepts in त्यहाँबाट आउन थाल्यो के. So I started making a lot of works after that, and that's what I realized कि like I sort of need these negative feedback पनि to kind of like push myself forward पनि, किनकि until and unless you don't step out of your comfort zone, it doesn't help you push into something greater that you're capable of doing भन्ने चाहिँ so yeah.
So basically you had a tough situation and you use that
exactly
the emotional pressure you felt to slingshot yourself.
Exactly.
And created your own style.
Exactly. Created my own style. Turning something negative into something positive has always been an interesting concept, you know. The idea of like contradiction, that is where it comes from as well, you know. The contradictory ideas like coming together and sort of like making this cohesive image at the end, or this idea at the end also. That also comes from that.
Nice. Ooh, and about this, your intellectual or biological growth, say, so how does it manifest in your aileko work, or aileko just your day-to-day lifestyle?
So, that was a phase that I had where I was painting a lot of images like that. But what I realized was like I had more to say than just that. You know, because it's still a very interesting topic that I also talk about still in some of my works, that the form of creating a realistic human figure but having this calligraphy like sort of contradictory element on the face started becoming very redundant.
Yeah.
So I started, because I realized that I had more to say, I started moving away from that particular style. And that was also a very interesting point, kinaki in street art, in like graffiti culture, you know, style is what your identity is represented by. So it's not about the signature, but when you see a certain street artist ko kaam, you recognize yo artist ko kaam ho, you know, by the work, by the style. So I had to literally break away from that identity and create a new identity, because I wanted to say something more other than just that. So to break bhएर चाहिँ नि अहिले I do most works that are about different topics, but the form factor, the medium is about deconstructivism, this concept of like a lot of images coming together and like creating this hodgepodge of images, but also having a sense of what it is, one sense what I need.
No. So यहाँ पनि I think we've
exactly.
come across your mural again.
Yeah, exactly.
यहाँ पनि I think you've got deconstructivism going on. Pretty evidently. So what's the significance of that spider coming out of a? I don't know. So
it's a bee.
It's a bee. Sorry about that. So what's the idea? What's the idea of a?
A lot of people get confused there. That happens.
But okay, so what's the idea of a bee coming out of a person's eyes, or even the person is also not a person, right? It's just the different faces of a person in different areas. So what's the idea of this mural?
So this is all about this one particular woman, Yogmaya Nepane भन्ने. So she was this very revolutionary woman who fought for like women rights and during this Rana time period ko ma चाहिँ नि. So her aspect of like creating a space for women and women rights was a very important topic for this particular mural. Okay? That was the basic because we were talking about like women rights and like gender-based violence ko basis ma चाहिँ नि. So your mural ma चाहिँ नि, the title is like paving the way for future queen bees.
Oh,
so that's why you have the literal bee also there, but you have like different sections of faces but overlap with like a Yogmaya ko face dekhi liera a younger woman ko face samma. So letting that narrative aspect of like old dekhi new samma ko garera, and plus also having this little figurative image of like a bee to kind of represent that idea ma pani. So it has that storytelling aspect ma chai यसमा.
You know, for us who are not in the art culture, I know, or in your words, for this particular case, street art culture, I know. I don't know. There should be a space where all of this is written. Yeah? It would be very. I would definitely go there and need to understand ke chai lekhirahcha, ke chai bhairahcha bhanera, हैन. Art for the sake of art, but art as a storytelling aspect पनि छ नि त.
Yeah, true.
And the fact that there is a significance of the bee in the art is pretty important, रहेछ. And it's evident आँखालाई. तर हामीले अलिकति थट दिन पाइरा हुँदैन नि त. त्यो चाहिँ ठ्याक्कै कतै भइदिएको भए क्या सजिलो हुन्थ्यो.
I mean, for this one there is, because they have put up a plaque that has the description. But most works don't have that. किनकि street art is not something that you sit down and experience for a very long period of time. It is made for the masses. It is made for the people when they are passing by. Okay? The first instant that they see is the most important part. Okay? So whenever we are also trying to create work, we also focus on that it has to have that impact for the people to actually stop and start looking at it at least for 5 minutes. Okay? And storytelling aspect आफ्नो ठाउँमा छ, where my ideas are very interesting to talk about as well, and what I'm trying to say with the artwork as well, but also like with the process of like painting in public spaces for a very long time period, what I've also come to realize is like what people have to say about the artwork, irrespective of what I have to say, the concept behind it is also very interesting. Okay? People will come by and they will look at it from their own personal perspective as well, and they would start connecting it, like they will start to decipher it in a certain way. And that is why I feel like my particular style also feels very interesting, because there isn't a definitive image. There is a little bit of like confusion in what is what, and that allows people to kind of like sit and like kind of decipher on their own. And I think when they sit down and do that, and when they base it on their personal experience, it becomes much more personal to them. It becomes much more powerful. Okay? And they might not get the whole aspect of like the feminism, the gender-based violence, and all of the feminism, like all of that, women rights and everything, but they will get something out of it. And I think making them trying to create a narrative of their own based on their personal experience is a very interesting thing, because they become very self-reflectory in a way. They start thinking about like what it could be, and based on their personal experience, they start creating that. And I think that is a very important and a very strong thing to have, because you allow people to have that experience in a way, but not in a very structured environment, because like here, like you could be anything, you might be having a bad day, but then again you see the artwork and it might take you in a completely different headspace. And I think that's very interesting in a way.
We've had to move because jam garदैछ मान्छे. के भन्छ दिउँसोको 5 बजे rush hour मा के भन्छ अङ्कपतिरेमा रोकेर. But I mean, yeah, I think that's, I mean, if you hadn't been here, if I had taken my time with it, I think I would have definitely come up with my own different explanation.
Exactly.
Ani, I think that's equally important, because as you said, street art of a batoma on Santa, it is for the mass.
Exactly.
And then the opinion of whoever's, the beauty of the beholder actually is significant. You also mentioned actually हाम्रो prior conversation that you enjoy how people react as you are making the art. I know you mentioned about the comments that you get from people and guessing what you're doing. I know, how is that? Does that influence you and your art? Do you improvise as you're making the art?
I necessarily don't improvise, but then again, that adds like a fodder to my future works as well. Because sometimes when you're talking to people, they start telling things about themselves and also what they think of the artwork. And sometimes what they are saying is much more interesting than what I have to say. Okay? And त्यो भएपछि चाहिँ नि future मा चाहिँ नि that plays a very important role as well. And also you think about your work in a completely different light as well, you know. And the power of street art being that you're not just getting a reaction about your work after it's done, but during the process of making it as well. Some people will come up and say like, तपाईले बनाएकोमा आँखा चाहिँ अलिकति मिलेन है, हात चाहिँ मलाई एकदम राम्रो लाग्यो, आँखामा चाहिँ नि त्यो अलिकति गऱ्यो भने चाहिँ एकदम राम्रो हुन्थ्यो भन्छ के, which is like impossible to have that freedom of honesty in a gallery setting. Nobody would do that because the space demands you to appreciate and just look at that. Okay. अनि स्ट्रीटमा चाहिँ नि they don't even know who you are, you don't even know who they are. तर the honesty, the blatant honesty is like, it's so amazing, and I really appreciate that when it comes to people.
Nice. So अघिको अलिकति selfishness मेरो लागि हो भन्ने वाला part अलिकति घट्यो हैन, because you're also doing it so that appreciate गर्ने मान्छेको लागि पनि it's part of the process.
Yeah, I mean it's I mean that is also a part of the selfish aspect as well, because I am a socially awkward person. So
which it doesn't, you don't seem like it.
Which doesn't seem like it, but then I am a very socially awkward person. So the act of like putting yourself in a public space and do something, and allowing interactions in that way allows me to at least work on my social interaction skills as well in a way, but also like creates this environment where I am trying to go beyond than what I am as a person.
Okay, so let me take alikati in a direction of not as an individual, as a community को कुरामा है. अब मेरो कति साथीहरु छन् के, like let's मेरो 100 जना साथी छन् भने I mean 50 जना 80 जना के, let's say 80 जनामा or like very rephrase है त, or let's say मेरो साथीहरु छन् के हैन, कति धेरै अब यिनीहरु मध्ये most of the friends who have this acumen for art, creativity, say, they end up mostly coming from Newari community. I know, you are from a Newari community.
Yeah.
What is this up with Newari community? Like, what's happening with Newari community and art?
That's an interesting one, because it's I really haven't been able to think about it that often, but it is kind of true that it's very often like people from Newari community. I think it has to do with the aspect that you belong to a city that art and culture is a very integral part of the living aspect. But also, I think it also has to do with like socio-economic backgrounds as well, because when we're talking about like Newars, most of the Newars are from Kathmandu Valley. Okay?
Yeah.
And these people, like especially from the Newari community, most people have their own houses here. They don't really have to think about paying rent, taking care of their expenses as a living expenses. Okay? So there is this secondary space where that allows them to think beyond just gas baskapas, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is also an important thing to think about as well. Okay? Kinaki sustenance पछि त आउँछ नि everything else, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is an important aspect. Culturally, I think art is very intertwined, So Tihar आउँदैछ, right? So Tihar is also a very important aspect, because I remember when I was growing up, Tihar को टाइममा चाहिँ नि अब महपूजा भन्छ भाइटिका गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ नि you would have to make tiny sculptures out of like rice को त्यो माटोको राइसको चाहिँ त्यो पिठोले you have to make different sculptures that would be part of the puja session के हैन. So like सानोदेखि हुँदाखेरि नै like that becomes a very communal activity where not just like the elders but also like the kids start making things with their hands. Okay? And this concept of like making things with their hand become very important culturally. And I think that also kind of shifts, but I think there are a lot of different aspects. I think majorly some are into details.
Okay, so सानैबाट you guys get exposure.
Definitely get exposure to that.
Bandara school ma the like art teacher le त पढाकै हो हैन.
Academic education and like something that comes from on the side is also very different. I mean like also a lot of, I mean not saying that there aren't good Newari artists, non-Newari artists, but there are also like very like interesting like non-Newari artists who do a lot of interesting work as well. But intensity ko mamlama, like the density of population involved in that is also makes a difference. Yeah.
So यो त्यसो भयो आर्ट स्कुलको मतलब छ त
Art school, see, I come from an academic background, so I cannot dish on like academic education, you know, because of course it has its own perks and everything. When I studied KU, you know, KU joined Gudhdai, and I had this very interesting mentality in my head where I was like, KU part 2, then I would do a lot of figure studies. There would be like models, you know, and especially I would study from the figures because I was very interested in like human anatomy and especially human figures. But when you get into the university, you start realizing that we study in Nepal.
Yeah.
Nepal ma limitations haru cha. त्यसले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ नि I mean limitations haru cha. त्यसले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ you don't get to see किनकि you see a lot of like international sphere मा चाहिँ कसरी भइरहेछ यहाँ चाहिँ त्यो लेभलमा चाहिँ हुँदैन. But the act of structuring your life for 4 years to just make art already makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
Which normally people until and unless they are very, very disciplined, won't do it. So actively create गरिराख्नु पर्ने हुन्छ. That plays a very big role because that improves your skills, that improves your capacity to like articulate your ideas and everything. तर मेरो लागि चाहिँ what I really take out from studying in Kathmandu University and like academic process was like the thinking process.
Okay.
You know, the way you think. भन्ने कन्सेप्टमा चाहिँ नि त्यो चाहिँ नि अलिकति इभल्भ चाहिँ गराइदिने रहेछ के because you keep making artwork, you keep surrounding yourself with people who are making work, you're talking about artwork, त्यसले गर्दाखेरि it kind of speeds up your artistic process, which necessarily might not happen when you're doing it non-academically.
Okay. So we've come to the end, towards the end of the show, you know.
It's getting dark.
I'm sure Kiki, our video editor, is going to hate us for taking it this long. But I'm sure like हामी conversation गरिरह्यो भने we'll keep going like भोलि नि बिहान नि हुन सक्छ.
Yeah, sure.
Kiki might be happier. So I just last मा चाहिँ I wanted to ask you एउटा question, you know. This was चाहिँ एकदम recent conversation I had with a friend, and it was to do with artists and money. Okay? So what is your relationship with money?
Money, it's a love-hate relationship because you love money, but also like it sucks because you have to sometimes do things for money. But it's an interesting concept when you relate it with like artists because ट्रेडिसनल माइन्डसेटमा चाहिँ हाम्रो के छ भन्दाखेरि आर्ट भनेको आर्टको लागि हो हैन अनि वी मेक इट फर आर्ट इट्स नट फर लाइक मेकिङ मनी एन्ड देयर इज दिस होल कन्सेप्ट अबाउट like there was this like great artists Van Gogh and all of them they made art, they never sold their artworks during the lifetime, maybe one but then again later on they made a lot of money but they like I mean their works got famous and everything. We live in this age where art, to sustain as an artist, you have to make money as an artist as well. And a lot of people might not be interested in that particular concept. You know, a lot of people might think that if you are talking about art, why are we talking about money in a sense? Okay. So I am a strong believer that if you want to continue your process of being an artist, you have to make money. You have to talk about your artwork. You have to present yourself as an artist who takes it as a profession, not just artistically, but also financially as a business as well. So it's very, very important to do that. And it's not that it's if you're doing it for money, you kind of like lose touch with your art, you know, because like oily situation after the struggling time period as well, oily situation I'm lucky enough to create my own art, and people are willing and people are happy to pay me for it. Okay? So I'm getting to do what I love, but also getting paid for it, and I think that's the best thing that could possibly happen. So to sense like I think it's it's an old concept that people have to kind of like get away from, okay? Like where they're talking about art, they stop talking about money, man.
Yeah. Okay. So we've come towards the end of the show. I personally say want you to make a lot of money,
Yes,
so you get to
me
make
too.
more art.
Definitely.
So your statements aren't about sustenance anymore, and it's about going grand, or
Exactly.
maybe not, or going details, whichever flies your boat, or like both, or
Exactly.
like there is so many dimensions that I don't even know. But I really want all the artists to have a platform,
Yeah.
and to be able to explore their creativity, and for that, money is a manifestation of that.
Exactly.
And like that
If you have
ability.
money, then you can do more like art. You can create amazing works,
Yeah. So I hope you make a lot of money as an artist, as that you make a lot of art as an artist, that you get to experience life, death, and everything in between, or even like beyond. I think that would be pretty awesome, if there's something like that. So with that, I'd like to thank you so much for doing this carcast with us. We had an incredible time.
Thank you for having me as well. It's been interesting. This is the first time we are doing this, and for me, like who I have been like talking to a lot of people, doing interviews and stuff like that. This is like something completely new, very interesting, and I think it's. Considering I do street art, I think it's best because we are in my urban landscape, in my experimental space, and we are driving through it, and this is the best thing.
Yeah, we could even see your murals, man.
Exactly.
It's crazy. Like we just walking, like it was kind of planned by me, but you had no idea about it. But it's the fact that you can see your art in public spaces, representing messages that were intentional. That's crazy. And again, thank you so much, Kiran.
Thank you so much. Awesome.
Awesome.